Oh my word, it's Brett Parry. How you
Oh,
doing,
g'day,
mate?
mate. How are you?
I am all right. Half a world away. How are the crazy times we live in affecting you?
Well, it's crazy, that's for sure. Great way to reassess and take stock, spend more time with the family, not traveling as much, which is great. And so for me, it's pretty good. I'm very positive. Yeah,
Can I say there was some very interesting congruence? You said spend more time with the family, and there was a natural smile. That won't be some of our viewers.
probably not. No, probably not. Yeah.
So let's get on to the business of the day. You've been having some conversations with people in your business community or local community. What's happening for them? What are they experiencing?
Well, I just had a conversation recently in the past couple of days with a past client, and this is really what turned it was supposed to be a short conversation, 5 minutes, catch up, chat. How you doing? Really through her concern for me, which is very touching, but it really came down to an hour's conversation. We
Wow.
touched on a lot of things, and we really came to a great. At the end of the conversation, we actually had some things we could take action on. Yeah.
Exactly. So what was happening for that person? Any headlines that we could relate to in these times?
Well, they've had some in their organisation. They've had a lot of change, a lot of reassessment. People obviously still hunkered down away from their
Yeah.
offices,
Yeah.
and as somebody who is involved in supporting the people around the globe as far as development and personal learning, that person has just really was trying to explain to me what that they were doing and take action, and possibly what we were doing as professionals in this world to help people prepare mentally or reflect mentally, whatever stage they're in. It's so.
Yeah.
I think it's really an assessment time. Yeah.
So let's take those two. We'll park the what are we all doing? What are you doing? What am I doing? Let's go back. What concrete actions was that person taking with their workforce?
Well, really, it was to do a bit of a reset on
Yeah.
what the skill sets were within amongst the senior people in the organisation, and what could they do? What hadn't they been doing in the past when things were so busy and people were interacting at the office? But what could they now do, drawing on the skill set that they've had before, to start preparing for this new great future that's going to be coming as we move out of this time? Yeah.
I love it. So what I'm hearing, Brett, it's an audit. It's an optimistic audit. You're looking at these whole people. You're making a rather rude assumption that in those busy times they were suboptimal. They were actually using maybe 70 or 50% of their potential,
Mm.
and that in a darkened cupboard of their minds there was more. There was skill. So it
Mm.
seems quite a positive thing. They were looking for the unused resources, the unused ability. Is that how you felt it go down?
That's kind of what I was feeling, yes. And I was relaying that even before these current developments, well, me personally too, we're looking at and changing the way we do business, change the way we interact and meet our clients. And some of that is us asking them the same question: is take a step back and say, what are you doing that you possibly is not doing, not being optimal? And what can you change to now adapt to this new future? And of course, this new future came a lot faster than we probably thought it would.
Absolutely, and change is forced upon us. And I have to big you up, young Brett. You have, I think, been an advocate for change. I've been on the digital train, but I think you've been on the digital train before me, and you've been shouting louder, "Come on, guys, get on board!" And you would say, "Give us some numbers." I mean, how much business were you doing, which was virtual before? Have things changed for you?
I changed dramatically. Only a couple of years ago, only 20% of my business was
Yeah.
virtual, and a lot of my clients were still wanting me to travel and meet with them in person. And then I took the active step of really asking them the question and saying, "Is this really? Do you really have time for all this? Can we
Yeah.
move it to a more flexible model?"
Yeah.
And then it went drastically in 1 year, went from that 20% virtual to over 50% of my work
Yeah.
virtual. So I'm very fortunate, very grateful that I've
Yeah.
I've been able to move my business in that direction, and it's really impacted the way that the clients interact with the materials. Yeah.
Love it, and I just match with my thing. I think I was in your before, maybe 20% of mine in terms of the coaching, webinars, a lot of business meetings. A lot of people in the old days used to say, "Come and see us," and I'd say, "Well, why don't we just have a virtual meeting? And if that goes well, then I'll come and see you." How many hours and months and pounds, dollars and euros did we save during that? And
Yes.
then it's about getting. But I tell you what, the old joke. You and I are old timers. When we started with Steam Radio, it was hard work chucking out a blog or putting up a website or doing all sorts of things.
Yes.
Nowadays, it seems that technology is rushing towards us, so really anyone can do it. Do you have the same
Absolutely.
feeling?
Absolutely. I think one of the actions I probably had not been doing, me personally, because I have a lot of learning in this, is that I haven't been taking action on that technology. I've been doing it in this kind of sense in terms of one-on-one interactions with my
Right. Yeah.
clients. But
Yeah.
uh, we do have a group of people here in this country that are now saying, well, look, we've got Facebook Live, we've got these
Yeah.
actual live platforms we can go onto,
Yeah.
and we're not trying to do it perfectly. It's about taking action.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
about doing the things that are right in front of us at the time, right in this moment, to make sure that we're serving the communities that we've got. Now, our community, you and I work in the same field. That is a community of people,
Yeah.
wonderful people around the world.
Yeah.
And some of them are in, uncertain times now too. So it's beholden on us to use those skills to not only serve the clients, but also the people in our networks, which is the same for any professional. Yeah.
Wonderful. So there's a bit of catch up, but then you're triggering something, and we just had a little chat before we started
Mm.
recording. Our day job is about people going through a particular experience as they expatriate, however you choose to pronounce that controversial phrase. And you were seeing a parallel here. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it was about this process of responding to change when
Yeah.
it comes on you in such a fast paced way. So, for people that we're working with that are moving to new countries, there are oftentimes we're trying to prepare them for this onslaught, this wave of difference that they're about to experience. And we've identified that is actually somewhat a grief process. This kind of reassessment that we've lost something of our old identity, our old location. And so this is what's happening with people now. So the conversations have kind of changed in terms of how the people want us to counsel them through this process, but the framework behind it hasn't changed. It's the same framework. It's just put in a different set of circumstances. So I think that's where the big learning has come from people, is that this is the same thing, but we're just applying it in a different way.
I got it. Yeah, the Kubler-Ross grief cycle and the rest of it. But it's also, if we look at, like Janssen's rooms of change, there will be the contentment. There's some things you did yesterday which will be valid tomorrow. And that really
Absolutely.
gives us all heart, because you can't change everything. There's
No.
stuff we cannot be deluded. We want it to still work, but it won't. And that's the loss. And you give up being an adult. I'm a functional adult at bashing machine number 3. Mate, let it go, turn it off. We're going to scrap it. It's whatever it is. It's digital number 75. And
Yeah.
we've got to learn like a child. If you can give up to learning like a child and enjoy it, especially in our homebound scenarios where we all pretend we're brilliant teachers educating from home, what's that about? Switching on Netflix is not really the teacher's job, is it? Then we can really transition to something. But let's move to that. I think where you and I are optimistic. What do you see as the opportunity this summer?
Well, the opportunity is to, if you can reframe and
Yeah,
retrain.
yeah,
I think many people underestimate the skills they've already learned.
lovely.
I've had clients that I ask about their travel experience in the past, and I say, well, think about that. You've actually picked up these skills that you're telling me about through that experience of traveling. Now you're about to apply it in real terms in
Yeah,
living in another
nice.
country, but it's not the same. So it's a slightly different thing. You're going to have to adapt. It is a great opportunity, as you say. We're optimists, and sometimes that can be seen as Pollyannic to some, but But, we really have no other choice but to, as leaders, we're trying to train leaders, and we're leaders in our own family, is to take a step back, a pragmatic step back, to assess what we've got, the skills we've got, the
Yeah.
resources we've got,
Yeah.
and retool them to adapt to the new great future that's coming, which is coming.
I think that's right. So what have we done with this conversation? I think we'll wrap it up. So you started with that idea of the skills audit of the senior management team. So this nice person who was very kind to you was embarking on that project, and what you seem to be doing is ending with, that is our personal homework, that's our personal meditation, and we can optimistically go deep, meditate, and ask ourselves these questions. And just this might be a bit of a winger. What might they find? The 35 to 55-year-old exec, desk bound last month, spare bedroom bound today, with the kids crying downstairs. What might they find within their minds, their hearts, their experience, their resources? What do you think?
Well, I don't think it's unlike what they would find if they had that same reflection in having to adapt to a new culture.
Love
It
it.
is basically to say, you know what, there are things that I thought were vitally important and that I couldn't live without, and that everybody
Lovely.
around me needed. But now I'm reassessing the importance things in my life, and yeah, I think I like the terms you use, are meditative. I've only really come to that practice officially, and I've found it very enriching. But I think on a lighter note, I think you when you talked about the child, right, the learning to learn like a child. I've got a 10-year-old who
Right.
probably, you're now speaking like a child. You're having more conversations like those of us, that have partners that may be at home, or that constantly crave adult conversation. You may be able to reflect on how powerful a conversation is with a 10-year-old, and especially when they're your child or daughter. And I've had some great conversations
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
my daughter, which I probably would have missed out on if I'd have been doing some of the travel I'd been doing before. So learning like a child, but also listening like a child.
Learning
And
like a child, listening like a child. Very nice. Very
yeah,
nice. All right, I think that's enough for a day. I'd love to reconnect with you in a couple of days' time, maybe have another one of these things. But for now, Brett
absolutely.
Parry, king of the world and cricket fan. Cheers, mate.
See, thanks, mate. Good on you, Matthew. Good to talk to you again. It's been too long.
Absolutely. And everyone, see you, viewers. See you soon. Cheers.
Cheers.